Odd isn't like being ethnic or disabled. Everyone can and will make jokes about it and expect you to laugh good-naturedly, which you will. I generally only eat one meal a day, which is pretty unusual for a restaurant reviewer. It's not that I have a problem with food. I'll eat anything that doesn't involve a bet, a dare, or an initiation ceremony. I tell you, once a girl's got a dose of novels, she's a pushover for iambic pentameter. London is a city of ghosts. You feel them here, not just of people, but eras, the ghost of empire, or the Blitz, the plague, the smoky ghost of the Great Fire that gave us Christopher Wren's churches and ushered in the Georgian city. Women's handbags are incredibly heavy. You rarely get to pick one up, and when you do, you wonder why anyone carries so much stuff around all day. Money has to be an explosion of excitement and opportunity, yet we already secretly know that it doesn't do what it promises. Nothing has ever given us as much pleasure as our pocket money when we were 12, or our first wage at the end of that first exhausting week, paid in folded cash. Have you noticed that almost all the change in the world goes to women? When was the last time you had a 5-pence piece? Exactly, in a Christmas pudding. All the rest of it is in women's handbags. Songs are all poetry, and they don't make any sense, because there is no better tool for writing than experience. It has very little to do with grammar, and everything to do with knowing. Writing, for me, is the great organizer. It's while writing that I think most deeply about things. It is impossible to be taken seriously in shorts. No one has ever cared about anything said by a man in shorts. This is the trouble with cheating. There are no acceptable rules or laws. It could be a smile or dancing to a song that you considered to be indefinably ours. It can feel like cheating to go to a restaurant that you used to go to with someone else. Keeping photographs of exes can infuriate, like retrospective cheating. The more there is on offer, the more you don't want. 50 options of cereal does not hone an Epicurean expertise in the finer points of puffed rice. It murders appetite. The part that makes you unique is the bit people will like or fear, fall in love with, or try to avoid. So, being a good man is not an exam or a qualification. It changes, and it incorporates being a good friend, a good father, a good employee, a good boss, a good neighbor, and a good citizen. I'm frightened of my innate vanity. I mean, the suits lined with scarves. Even I know the warning signs. I could quite easily end up in a tiny Playboy mansion, all on my own. The one thing politicians will always vote for is more politics. So in 2000 they invented the post of Mayor of London without ever really thinking what it was a mayor would do. Other people's traditions look charming and decorative and exotic. They're nice places to visit on holiday, but you wouldn't want to live with one. People who don't believe in God are no happier than people who do. And those who do believe are no nicer than those who don't. Trying to learn to be a good man is like learning to play tennis against a wall. You are only a good man, a competent, capable, interesting, and lovable man, when you're doing it for or with other people. The trouble with writing some wrongs is that it makes the remaining ones seem even more unbearable. The real question is, if you knew there was a God, would you behave any differently? And if the answer is yes, then perhaps you should assume there is. Personal adornment is the only cultural form that everybody in the world takes part in. I don't go to the openings of shops or parties given by people I don't know. All people from small islands dance funny. Shorts are silly. Men in shorts are silly men. And silly is the very worst thing a man can be. My only piece of advice is that all of you consider every single text and Snapchat that you ever make is also being shared with your partner, because they all check your phones all the time. The only acceptable cravat is the original Croat one. People who know there is a God and people who know there isn't live in exactly the same world, same number of hours in the day, same weather, same football results. They both love their children and die of the same diseases. The problem with a man bag is that it's called a man bag. You see, the problem with Dave Cameron is that people know who he is. The less people know about him, the more he's likely to get re-elected. You can propose marriage naked or in handcuffs, but no one is going to agree to forsake all others for a man in shorts. You can't declare war in shorts or deliver a eulogy in shorts. So much of life is not about whether you're good or bad, or right or wrong, or can afford or not afford. It's just about timing. In fact, everybody should wake up smelling nice. I go further. There is not an excuse, ever, not to smell nice, particularly your feet. I don't remember ever stealing things, but I suppose I was endlessly borrowing money off people. Nature gave you your look, and there's only a limited amount you can do about that. But what you wear is the skin you choose for yourself. Mourning the loss of the phone call is like pining for buggy driving or women in hats, or 3 martini lunches. They've gone. When I joined the Sunday Times, the people I was competing with were all 10 or 15 years younger. They all had double firsts from Oxford or Cambridge. They were all bright as new pins. I'm terribly prone to anxiety. I get very depressed, and I get very anxious, and my anxiety is almost always about my children. And learn to tie a bow. It's not difficult, and there's no excuse for either a clip-on or the hideous Hollywood straight tie. Boredom is not a thing. It's not a feeling or a condition. It is the absence of feelings, things, and conditions. The answer is that if God exists, he doesn't seem to mind if you believe in him or not. Learning Jimmy Carr riffs off by heart is not the way to anyone's heart, unless you're Jimmy Carr. And remember, the 2 most attractive things in a man is a sense of danger and being able to make a girl feel really safe. As handbags get ever more absurdly large, so they need to carry more stuff to validate the expense of this huge trunk with chains, buckles, and padlocks on. A cravat has to be approached with consummate self-confidence and a devilish nonchalance. A cravat has to be grasped by a man who knows how to treat a cravat. A cravat is the only item of named after Croatians. Balkan mercenaries were brought to Paris by Louis XIV. Their strange and exotic attire attracted the French bonhommes, who were wearing formal ruffs, and who immediately took to the simple and relaxed military cloth tied at the neck. There are 5 great ages of man, 5 moments when you need to reevaluate everything, clear out the cupboard and the wardrobe, and most importantly, your head. They are 13, 20, 30, 40, and 60. All men need to know this. Everyone has to go to a funeral at some time, and you need to be dark and somber, and in a black tie. 20 is a tough age because it slips past in the middle of so much else. University, gap year, leaving home, getting jobs. Television is a constant stream of fact, opinions, lies, moral dilemmas, plots, an infinitely complex and sophisticated torrent of information. How could it not make you clever? The only people who ever thought television rotted the brain and made kids dumb were those with a vested interest in other ways of learning, or those who were intellectually insecure, usually about books. Breakfast is everything, the beginning, the first thing. It is the mouthful that is the commitment to a new day, a continuing life. The truth and the facts aren't necessarily the same thing. Telling the truth is the object of all art. Facts are what the unimaginative have instead of ideas.